Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for your
Chairman.
patience.
Thank you, Ranking Member Bartlett, and thank you, General Crosby and General Davis, for your service. I have a couple questions specifically about the unmanned aerial systems. Specifically, can you please elaborate on how the Army Sky Warrior UAS system is going to be used in terms of its mission in relationship to the Predator program that the Air Force runs?
This Sky Warrior, we're going to field our first quick reaction capability of 4 systems this summer in OIF, and they will be used in direct support of the assignment of the division that they'll go to, or to the corps that they'll go to. So they'll be used in direct support of our forces on the ground there.
General Davis, again, the differences between coordination with the Air Force program. I mean, is there a strategy? Is there coordination, or are you working specifically from the Army's perspective and not looking at obviously this new type of technology and the possibilities that can be used collaboratively?
Again, the capability is somewhat similar. The ERMP will deliver more capability than the current Air Force Predator does. However, again, the Predator is used in a theater-wide role prioritized by the theater commander. In the case of ERMP, or the Sky Warrior in this case, again, it's an asset that we will field directly to our divisional elements. They'll be resident in our combat aviation brigades, and again, the division commander will determine the ground force commander will determine the prioritization of how that asset is used, and so it won't be apportioned or allocated based on a theater-wide requirements for that capability.
In terms of what's happening down at Fort Huachuca, one of the challenges we have is with the FAA and the restrictions that they're putting on overflights. And I'm curious about the challenges to unit training and readiness, but particularly in relationship to the Guard units. So if you could please address that, if you're working with the FAA or what the plan is there.
Well, that's a mouthful. Ma'am, the thing that we are struggling with the UAS is operations in the FAA airspace. And you talk about the challenges we have there. We're learning with the FAA as we go forward. What we originally started out with, some of these programs and the capabilities within them as far as control, utilization of sensors and the hazards associated with them, we're now learning that the FAA is not comfortable with that. So we're having to build in some redundancies in there, just as you would with a manned aircraft, in order to be able to operate in that airspace. Today, to do training at Fort Huachuca, which I know you're very familiar with, we have to really block off a lot of airspace in order for us to be able to train in those areas. That will be a very difficult situation outside of places like Fort Huachuca that have significant airspace allocated to do that. We are working very hard with the FAA every day trying to address that. The challenge that we're going to have with our Guard and Reserve is they're not normally located at places that are going to have those kind of ranges. So our approach today is to try and build in those redundancies and get to the point where, I mean, we're spending a lot of effort in see and avoid technologies. Well, that's easy with a manned person in the cockpit, not so easy with the UAS. Those are the kind of paths that we're pursuing. It's unknown territory with FAA, and we're learning as we go. That's not a great answer, but we're pursuing it as diligently as we can.
One final question. In terms of the training for the cargo delivery mission for the UASs, is that something that you see taking place in areas like Fort Huachuca, or do you have specific locations where you're looking at for that training piece?
Army Aviation took over to be the proponent for the UAS systems, but because our focus today in the Army has been on RISTA, Reconnaissance, Surveillance, Targeting, Acquisition, Fort Huachuca being our intelligence center, there's been an inseparable marriage or link there, if you will, between the two communities. Today, as it stands, I have no requirement been transposed to me to do a cargo version of a UAS. Is that coming? I can't predict a crystal ball, but I would think as we continue to expand on these capabilities, that would certainly, the potential is there for the future. Today, as we have it with the UAS systems we have in the Army, we're focused on reconnaissance and surveillance, targeting acquisition.
That's true, but looking at future roles for UAS is certainly the cargo delivery is a potential. So are you saying that there's no dedicated locations at this point, or there's no decision to do training in specific areas?
Simply, I don't have any resources today, because if there's no requirement, they don't give me the resources to pursue that. There's probably some effort ongoing in the science and technology arena with the DARPAs and to look into those things. But as far as any plans for the training, until I get a program of record to pursue, we have not gone down that path, frankly.
But I think if I understand, ma'am, the kind of the thrust of your question, because we are doing joint training at Fort Huachuca on our other systems, as the Marine Corps, and we saw their initiative to take a look and try to determine whether there is a contractor out there that can provide the capability that they need for cargo. Then where would you train it? Certainly, we'd have to assess, the ability to do that at some locations. That could be Fort Huachuca, because again, we do the joint training there. So, or another location. Don't know. So we would have to do that and work in concert with the Marine Corps in that case.
Thank you.
We'll